Thank you and welcome back to the second segment of the show for today. We're talking to Alvin Haney, and he's giving us some information in reference to cycling during the summer. And he's already given us some information in reference to the reason that he became involved with what he's doing. Let's pick up at this point, AJ, and let's see if we can watch some of the images that you have. I think that
Like I said, the second goal that I had was definitely to make sure that I cycled in as many states as I could this summer. I was able to cycle in 19 different states, which was 13 new ones to me, and kind of took some images along the way. A lot of them I tried to find the state line sign, trying to find out where it says welcome to whatever state that you're in, and that ended up being quite a task itself. But again, I did bring along some images, and I can share those with you as well.
Okay, I think we're making preparation for those.
Okay, so Montana was one of the states that I traveled in with the Fuller Center Bike Adventure. We were able to start in Seattle, Washington, and go across Washington to Montana, and stopping in, and also through Idaho and stopping in Yellowstone Park in Montana. So that was when I found that state line sign. Idaho, again, that was before Washington. We got a chance to stay in Kellogg, Idaho, with one of the Fuller Center Covenant partners there, and that is one of the pictures there. There I'm on the Coeur d'Alene Trail, which is one of the nicer bike trails that they have in Idaho. It's a 54-mile trail. We had to do a lot of climbing on our bicycles. We had to go up a lot of mountain passes, and this is going up Stevens Pass on a very cold morning in the state of Washington. The climbing aspect of cycling is not something I'm very good at, but I'm learning to love it. This was our starting day in Washington, Seattle, Washington, kind of overlooking the landmarks there and starting there at the ocean in Seattle. They are actually traveling from Seattle, Washington to Washington, D.C. And as I said, I chose to only do 2 weeks with them. Getting out to Washington State, of course, I had to go through a few states. I had to travel through Oregon, so stopped in Eugene, Oregon. I had to stop in Sacramento, California, and I did some cycling there. It was another state that I was able to cover. I went through Las Vegas, Nevada, and this is one of the landmarks in Las Vegas as I cycled with one of the local clubs there. Of course, I had to go through Arizona, and was able to stay with some family members as well, traveling through Arizona, through New Mexico, had to cross there. There is Oklahoma City, I believe, or Albuquerque, yeah, Albuquerque, New Mexico, I believe, is that particular image in one of the parks there. Went through Dallas, Texas, so was able to stay in one of the suburbs of Dallas and do some riding as well. This one is in Louisiana, which was the first state that I stopped in, and at one of the parks there in Louisiana.
And so in a real sense, AJ, all of this information is, you've done this for how many years have you been involved in
Well,
this?
I've been involved with cycling since 2009. Got really serious about it about 2011 or 12. And at that time, I, just started setting some goals. I want to do a 100-mile ride. I was able to do that. And then I want to, travel from, one state to another, and was able to do that. And so it just kind of grew out of, a love of cycling, of staying fit. And, and I found a way to use that to also help people. So with the Fuller Center, I'm able to use the donations that are raised to help different families, which is part of the mission of the Fuller Center, to raise money to help families with their housing so that everybody has a safe place to live. The second thing that I raised donations for this year was also the Alumni Association at Tennessee State University. I am a graduate of Tennessee State University, and our fraternity chapter, Alpha Phi Alpha, and the BO Alumni Association also put on a bike ride, and they've been doing that since 1989. They put on a bike ride where we ride our bikes from Nashville to Memphis, and we do that every September. That is also a charity ride, so we raise funds to do that. So instead of, I guess, asking my generous donors to contribute more than, one time per year, I just kind of lumped them both together. So I was able to raise enough money to participate with the Fuller Center, and also to give funds to the Alumni Association, which will go to some deserving college students over at Tennessee State University.
And so you've been involved with charitable work as well as part of your strengthening program, I would imagine, in terms of bicycles. And now, how many people actually rode with you this time?
Well, I kind of broke it into 3 segments. The first segment was actually driving my car from Nashville to Seattle. So that was on my own, going through all the states that we just saw and getting to Seattle. Once I got to Seattle and with the Fuller Center, and I think he explained in the video, there were 30+ people who were going all the way from Seattle, Washington to Washington, D.C. And I participated in the first 2 weeks of that, which, was the one that had really the most participation throughout all the segments that they're going to do. They break it into 9 one-week segments. So I did segments 1 and segments 2, going from Washington and then going into Idaho, and then the second week going from Idaho and into West Yellowstone, Montana. So approximately, 30+ people who are going the whole way, but at any point during any week of the segment, there could be 40 or 50 people with them.
And so people become involved with this, and it plays a very, very important part in what you call charitable work that the Fuller Center does.
Right.
I understand that you need funds in order to keep this activity going and
Yes,
in order
definitely.
to support this. Talk about that fundraising aspect
The
of it.
donations go towards the national organization, the National Fuller Center for Housing, but there's also a local organization. We do have the Middle Tennessee, what we call a covenant partner, which is one of the local chapters. So the Middle Tennessee Fuller Center for Housing is where all my donations went. Each cyclist gets to allocate the funds to whichever local organization they would want to. So with there being covenant partners all over the country, of course I chose the one that most affected me and back at home. And so I'm able to raise money for them. It goes towards the local organization, and then the local organization seeks applicants who need a hand and need help with their housing.
And so it serves a real purpose in terms of bringing people together and giving an idea in terms of how things you might be able to achieve certain things. And what we're going to do, we're going to take this second commercial break, and then we're going to come back and allow you to further elaborate upon some of these things. And we'll be back with our audience following this very, very short commercial break. And so we can go right into this?
Yeah. Well, he's going to give you a 2-minute break. And then
Okay, then. That sounds good.
just remember to try to keep your body turned towards the camera, because you got
Towards that camera?
straight on Mr. Haney there.
Okay, got it.
You got it. So you're picking up everything?
Yeah.
Okay, good. Yeah, I didn't know how this would work. Now, this final segment will have those pictures, but for me to open it up, what do you want to talk about specifically? I mean, in addition to the pictures.
Just open up with that there's 3 parts. So tell us about, the third part of your mission, because we already got me driving to Seattle, what I did from Seattle to Yellowstone, and then just say, well, tell me about the third part of your bicycle adventure.
Which is what? What do you call it?
Which is basically just driving from Montana, getting from Montana and back home. Montana and back home.
30 seconds.
Bicycling out west. What is it?
Summer cycling adventure.
Summer cycling adventure.
Stand by, Dr. Haney.
Thank you and welcome back to the final segment of the show for today. We're talking to Alvin Haney, and he's giving us some information in reference to some of his summer cycling adventure. And let us see if we can pick up, AJ, and talk about some of the other activities. And I think we have some images that we want to project on the screen, dealing with some still photos and et cetera.
Right. The third leg of my trip was after I left the Fuller Center, kind of going back home. So, of course, I had to go through South Dakota, and that's where we see Mount Rushmore, and I was able to stay in Spearfish, South Dakota, and meet some great people there. I was able to go to North Dakota, and there we see Fargo and Moorhead. In North Dakota, that Fargo is right on the border of Minnesota, so I was able to cycle in 2 states there, and I was able to cover 2 birds with 1 stone. Same thing with Iowa and Nebraska. I stayed in Omaha, Nebraska, and so therefore I was right there on the border with Iowa, so I kind of got 1 foot in each of those 2 states and was able to cover that particular area. From there, went on to Chicago, and one of the suburbs of Chicago is Oswego, and I was able to do cycling in kind of the Chicago suburbs as well, staying with relatives and just, you know, kind of seeing Lake Michigan and all of that. From there, went on to Michigan and Indiana. I was able to stay at South Bend, Indiana, which was on the border of Indiana and Michigan, kind of strategically placing those particular states where I could cycle in 2 states at once. So there's my completed map, or where I've done so far. I've covered 38 out of the 50 states. I only have the East Coast to do, and from what I hear from the future plans for the Fuller Center is that next year they are actually going to cycle the East Coast. So their plans for next summer are to have 2 different rides. The ride that they're going to do from Seattle, Washington down to Oceanside, California. So they're going to do the West Coast ride, and then of course they're going to you know, bring our supplies in van all the way across the country, and then they're going to start in Portland, Maine, and go down to Key West, Florida. So at some point in there, in the Portland, Maine to Key West, I should be able to cover 10 more of those states, bring me up to 48, leaving me with only Alaska and Hawaii before I've cycled in all 50 states. So that's where I'm headed.
And so your goal is to cycle in 50 of the continental United States of America, and so you've almost accomplished that in a real sense.
I'm very close. I started off with 25, and I got 13 new states, so I'm at 38, and really looking forward to, you know, trying to achieve my goal of having all 50 states. That's what I want to do.
Is there much competition among riders to see who can get to as many states as possible?
Well, there's camaraderie around riders.
Yeah, well, I mean, but
as far as locally, you know, I do know a few local cyclists who have done, you know, a lot of the states. I don't know of any that have done all 50, but if there's competition, then I hope I'm in there, or I'm part of that pack. You know, cycling, it has great health benefits. It's one of the things that, you know, I really love to do. Most cyclists, I would say, are former runners. You know, used to be a runner, and then when the knees give out or you've had a few surgeries, you turn into a cyclist. You ask the doctor, well, what should I do to, you know, keep my health up? And they say there's much less impact to cycle a bike. So I agree with that 100%, and that's what I do to stay in shape.
And so you've been riding not only with the Fuller Center, but you have also done quite a bit of riding with local groups in Tennessee, going to various places.
Yes,
Memphis. Say something about that.
I belong to a couple local cycling clubs. One of them, one that I actually founded is the Domestiques Cycling Club, and we're based out here out of Nashville. We do charity rides. We participate weekly, where we're you know, just going out and getting our exercise for the day. So we have rides on Tuesday, Thursday, and Saturday. You know, usually the weekday rides are 20 miles or less, and you know, you'd be surprised that 20 miles may sound like a lot, especially if you're thinking about running 20 miles, but on a bicycle, 20 miles, you know, could take you an hour, hour and a half or so, and you know, the benefits, you know, are just exorbitant. So with our 20-mile weekly rides, and then on the weekends, we tend to go 50 miles plus, you know, 70, 80 miles would, you know, might be a typical weekend ride, especially once, June and July hit, and we've had, since March to, train up to those amount of mileages. So I do that with them as a way, again, to kind of support the community. We invite everybody to come along and ride with our cycling club, and it's something that, I think you would enjoy.
What are some of the most important things that you remember from your rides all over the nation here? I mean, talk about some of those most important experiences that you've had.
Okay, well, with my rides, again, the charity aspect is definitely something, that I believe strongly in, as far as giving back to the community, helping people with their housing. But for me personally, it's seeing the people who are willing to be there to help us. When we do these charity rides, we stay at local churches, we stay in school gyms, we stay at the community center, and there's always people there who are willing to give of their time. A lot of times they cook meals for us, so they're willing to cook for us, and just find joy in that, and just meeting the people across the country who are so willing to give and so helpful, and wanting to help people who are helping others. It makes them feel part of the cycle. It definitely encourages and lifts us up, and gives us what we need as far as being able to sustain our bodies and do the physical demands of riding an average of 80 miles a day. So it's really just the people. The people really mean a lot to me as far as them being there to help, wanting to give, wanting to assist us with our mission.
And so you would advise people who might be interested in what you're doing, what would you advise them to do? And how would they be able to assist you?
Okay, well, I did set up a GoFundMe site, and I believe the address will appear on the end result here. So the GoFundMe, and it's Haney Cycling, I believe, or Haney Cyclist is what you would search for. And again, I had to raise donations for the Fuller Center, raise donations for Tennessee State University, so that could definitely be a big help as far as those missions, being successful. So the donations help, the well wishes help, the fact that, I have people along the way as I post on social media, the images you saw and more, and what I'm doing daily, them just giving me a thumbs up or a like, or giving me a comment like "you go" or keep it up. Really mean a lot as far as helping me achieve what I need to do.
And you've made quite a number of friends in that kind of activity among those who you ride with.
Definitely. As I was riding in Omaha, I actually just riding along the street and rode next to another cyclist, and found out that he has a similar mission. That he, the week after I ran into him, that he was starting a bike ride where he started in Oregon, and he's going all the way, across to Philadelphia. And so, meeting other people with similar interests, similar, views, and similar, need to help people, that means a lot.
AJ, I think that this is an extraordinary activity that you're taking part of, and that you ultimately wish to ride in all 50 of the continental United States, and you've almost covered many of them, and you really think that you can, in the end, cover all of the states.
Well, I had to come up with another goal. So again, coast to coast is done, so the 50 states is next, and who knows what's after that. I guess I got to take it internationally.
Do you find folks interested in riding in Alaska and Hawaii or whatever? I mean,
there are people there. I found that out last summer. I didn't know that there were people in Maine until I got there. So if there's people there, there's a cyclist there. So cyclists are interested in getting the work done.
And people become all hyped up in reference to this activity, and they generally want to take part in it, and there's a great camaraderie between people who ride bicycles.
I'm always encouraging people in our club and people that I run into to come out and learn about cycling, learn about what it takes to ride in a group. It's different than just your Sunday stroll down to the grocery store. But again, it's a worthwhile activity, and you can help some people along the way.
And AJ, let me thank you over the last half minute that we have for giving us that excellent information, in addition to the photographs that you've shown us today. And let me encourage our audience to tune in again next week for another informative edition of Comment. audience. Thank you and good morning.